It's an extra frame extra. Mike J. Laneside at 2012 Bowl Expo. And my first guest, we call him the font of bowling knowledge, Mark Miller. You got a new book out.
Yes, I do, old friend. It's called the America's Greatest Game Bowling. A company out of England called Shire Books gave me a call. I actually called the Bowling Museum. They gave them to me, and I've been working on it for about a year, and it's going to come out this fall.
When did the font of bowling knowledge start spewing forth the glory of the sport of bowling?
The sport? Well, I worked at ABC, the old ABC, started in 1985. Went through all the various iterations, Bowling Incorporated, USBC, and then worked for them until 2010, so about 24 years. And and a lot of that really came from I like to quote Robin Yount. Robin Yount, the old Milwaukee brewer who you know well, used to say, I didn't accumulate a lot of this stuff because I was good. I did it because I was in one place for a long time. And I kind of equate that to that. You accumulate knowledge from all the various mentors I've had, from all the books we had at headquarters, and just from repetition and learning. So I certainly didn't come into it with that knowledge as a youth bowler, but I didn't know any of that stuff till I got to ABC. So more of it was just being there and absorbing what I learned from all the various people and places.
But this book is about bowling, which has played such a strong role in America, and you parallel a lot of what has happened with America and what has happened with the game of bowling.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a thing when I came through Milwaukee about 10 years ago at the Baseball All-Star Game called Baseball as America, and that always struck me as kind of a neat thing. It was not just about baseball itself, but how what's happened in America over the last few hundred years, and baseball kind of melded together. So I tried to do that a little bit here, and the same thing with bowling, such as, there's about 3 or 4 major times in bowling when it really grew. The first big one is in the 1800s when all the people came over from Europe, and a lot of them brought their various bowling games with them. Then time in the early 1900s, you had a lot of trends toward, unfortunately, anti-minority and anti-women at that time, but it affected bowling to the start of the Women's International Bowling Congress. Later, when Prohibition ended in the 30s, the beer teams really came into play in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. When television was in the 40s and 50s, that had a thing. And then a lot of innovation I found happened, Mike, in bowling in the World War II era. You had automatic pin setters came in, the telescores, a lot of that stuff, a lot of innovation. And then there was also in the 50s a lot of architecture, very modern architecture at that time came in, more space age type. And so a lot of that happened. And then more recently, in the last 20, 30 years, as we've changed, a lot of the things that have affected America, women going back to work, real estate pricing changing, people don't want to be out at night, and people don't want to bowl 36 weeks. That's affected us in many ways, and I outlined that in the last chapter.
Well, very interesting. How does one start to write a book?
Well, one thing that was fortunate for me is having already had some of the stuff around in various formats, being in magazine articles or some other things we had done. I had an idea of at least the basics. Now, I started it with, okay, here's an overview of the sport, and here's why it's one of America's greatest games. And then from there, you do the history pretty much in chronological order, back to the days of Egypt, 3200 BC, and then just kind of working a chapter. That kind of gets the ancient chapter, then you get the chapter on Europe, then a chapter more on America, and so it kind of builds chronologically from there. And then it ends up, it's not that big, it's only 64 pages, but it's hopefully an easy read, and we'll see what the public thinks about it.
Extra Frame has magical powers. Let's advance 100 years into the future. We're now in the year 2112. What does the second edition of that book look like? Where's bowling going?
That's a great question. It's changing, as I'm sure a lot of your viewers have seen. It's changed a lot to where you don't see any more of the old so-called bowling alleys where all it was a bar and the lanes. You've now moved to this thing of the family entertainment center thing, and then even the other extreme, which is more the club bowling, the boutique bowling, like Lucky Strikes. I think you're going to see more a broader based type of entertainment. But hopefully you're always going to have that sport element, because that's the one thing that I've talked to a lot of people is that you can't have all this fun and recreational stuff without the sport. The sport is the basics. So hopefully in 100 years we're going to have more people in it as a sport, still having the recreation part of it, but how do we get more people involved doing that? And I think we will at some point, because bowling, like a lot of stuff, has always been very cyclical. And hopefully I see it that at some point, maybe not as fast as we'd like, but at some point we're going to kind of get more to where it's more of a sport first, a recreation second down the road.
All right. let me see that again, and I'll hold it.
There you go.
Where can I find it? How much is it? And when is it going to be out?
All right, well, it's coming out in late October. There will be a number of places, of course, the normal book places like Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, but then we're working on a number of places through the bowling industry, starting with the Bowling Museum in Arlington, hopefully working some stuff out with USBC and BPA. I hope to be able to work it out with you guys to have them sold on your stops, and now with the new expanded schedule, which would open up new opportunities on places. So hopefully we're going to work some of that out. It's so new that we're still working on that, but all the various ways that bowlers would interact with bowling, hopefully they'll be able to get it through there.
Well, Mark Miller, thanks for joining us. Font of bowling knowledge, author, and the name of the book is Bowling, America's Greatest Game, and we feature this on this Extra Frame Extra.